So you're new to Wuthering Waves, and you have found out that while it is similar to Genshin, it's also not similar to Genshin. And one of those ways that it's not similar to Genshin is going to be intro and outro skills. So in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to look at intro and outro skills, try to explain what they are, how they work, and give a couple different examples of them. So from now on, Wuthering Waves is going to be called uWuWu instead of uWuWu. One of my mods called it uWuWu, and I added the extra U on top of it. So we are going to look at intro and outro skills. For this, we are going to first go find some enemies, and we're going to kind of talk about how this combat system component works. First, we are going to point out some things. Now, at the bottom right here, we have what I am going to call our outro skill gauge. Right? If you've watched any of my videos, you know that I don't like using the actual terminology. I like explaining things in a different way. So we have this outro skill gauge. And for us to activate the outro skill, we need to charge it up. You also have intro skills, right? So in this example, we have our character on the field is going to be our outgoing character, meaning that we will trigger their outro skill. When another character takes the field, in this case, Verena, they are going to be our intro character or our introducing character. They are going to use their intro skill. When you swap characters, they will always do their intro skill. So right now we have Mortefi. If we were to swap to another character like Yang Yang, it is going to do her intro skill of doing arrow damage, trying to hit the enemy up into the air. If we then swap into another character like Verena, it is going to do her intro skill and do damage according to her element. Same thing, no matter what, if we swap, then we do the intro skill. Now you're gonna notice that as we're swapping around, our outro skill gauge is going to increase. That is one of the ways to increase your outro skill gauge. Other ways to increase your outro skill gauge is going to be doing like normal attacks, using your skill, using your burst, as well as like counterattacking and dodging. There are tons and tons of ways of charging your outro skill gauge. Now, once you have an outro skill gauge charged up fully, you're going to notice that on the other side, you're going to notice that our other characters are going to be glowing white. That means that if we swap to one of those characters, it will use their intro skill and the outro skill of our outgoing character. Each character has their own outro skill. And whenever we use her outro skill, our character taking the field is going to have this outward effect. As you can see around Mortefi, is going to have this kind of white glow pulsey thing, right? Which is going to give energy to your Resonance Liberation, which is essentially your burst, right? It's gonna be not your Q, your R in this game. And this is really good because one of the ways that you gain your outro skill, which is actually called like concerto energy, to get your outro skill gauge up using your burst as well. So this will be really, really good because it will give more energy to your outro skill gauge, so that way it's more readily available for swapping, right? So now we have Mortefi's outro skill ready to go. Yang Yang and Verena are both glowing. If we swap to Yang Yang, then it is going to do Yang Yang's intro skill, which is going to do arrow damage. But you notice around Yang Yang, she now has this red aura with some arrows. That is because Mortefi's outro skill is affecting Yang Yang. Mortefi's outro skill is actually a buffing outro skill. It is going to give the next character that uses the outro skill gains 38% heavy attack damage deepened for 14 seconds or until they switch off the field. Now, so that means that right now, Yang Yang is being buffed. She's getting the heavy attack deepen with this effect. This is how the buffing works in this game. This is one of the ways. I haven't seen a different way, but I'm assuming that there will be later on. There may not be. This might be the only way that you trigger buffs. It allows your outgoing characters the ability to give buff to the incoming character. So you really got to look at what character you're using for your main DPS, if they kind of work together, right? like Yang Yang uses her heavy attacks a lot, so this can be a very, very good buff for her. And so we're gonna go find a stronger enemy than what we've been fighting, so that way we can kind of show a little bit of a rotation as we go through. So we want Mortefi or Verena to get their burst up more readily available, so that way we can use it to then get up their outer skill, so that way we can then just go back and buff Yang Yang, right? Because I'm using Yang Yang as my on-field damage dealer, my main DPS. So with this, we are then going to swap back over to Yang Yang. We are going to get the heavy attack deepen bonus for her, so that way she can just do a lot of damage. As you're seeing with what she's doing, with how her kind of kit works, she does use her heavy attack a lot, as well as some other skills. But she is getting the buff from Mortefi. Now we are going to look at 4 different kinds of outro skills. Intro skills are all gonna be pretty standard. Outro skills are where you start getting a lot of variation. So Yang Yang outro skill, as we talked about before, restores 4 resonance energy per second over 5 seconds to the next character, allowing them to use their burst more, their R more, meaning that then they can charge up their outro gauge, right? And if we go look at Mortefi's again, it is going to give a heavy damage deepen buff that is going to make your character on the field or the next character that comes in, allow them to do more damage. It's going to give them a damage buff, but make sure you read it carefully. For 14 seconds or until they swap off the field. So that until they swap off the field is very important. If we go look at another character like Jianshin, and we look at her outro skill as well, it says 38% resonance liberation damage deepen for 14 seconds or until they're switched off the field. That means that her buff and Mortefi's buff cannot stack. You cannot get them both on to one character, because if you swap to like Yang Yang for Mortefi, she is going to get the buff, but in order to get Jianshin's buff, you then have to swap to Jianshin and swap back. So you can't do that, because once you swap them off the field, you lose the buff. However, if we look at Verena's not only heals whenever you use her outro skill based on her attack, so we do want to build attack, all characters on nearby teams gain 15% all type damage deepen for 30 seconds. You notice it does not say until the character swaps off the field, meaning that you can use Verena, then you can go to Mortefi, then you can go to your main DPS, and your main DPS, in my case Yang Yang, is going to get the all type damage deepen and the heavy attack damage deepen. She is going to get both of them. That is how you can stack. Now for the last kind that we're going to talk about is Chixia. I think I'm saying that right. The Amber of uWuWu, right? Now, her outro skill is vastly different than the other 3 kinds that we've talked about. So her outro skill, instead of buffing, instead of healing, instead of giving energy, it is gonna nuke. She releases a shockwave surrounding the target, dealing fusion damage equal to 530% of her attack to enemies within the range. To me, this is a nuke outro skill, right? This is gonna do a ton of damage, especially with some of the echoes, which I'll make a video on later on, that we've discovered, and their 5-piece effects. This is going to allow for Chixia to literally, if there was ever gonna be a quick swap team, I think Chixia would be on it, especially with the characters that we have now, because you would just be able to bring her on, use her skill, or you build up her outro skill gauge, her concerto energy, take her off and nuke the enemy right then and there. And I think that this ability, this outro skill, is going to be insane. It has a lot of potential, especially if you can just stack attack on her, right? So we have support, buffing, healing, and damaging, in Chixia's case, a nuke. So now we're gonna look at something else that your outro and intro skills can do if you are fighting a boss energy, like we have here, the Crownless. Now you see underneath his HP, you have this white bar. That is essentially his shield, right? If you break his shield, then you stun him, and he's going to lay there and take some damage, right? So the ways to decrease that white bar are going to be like your normal attacks, your skill, your burst. It's going to decrease it just anytime that you do damage. But as you see this yellow ring coming down, you can do a counter attack. That is also going to take off a chunk. But another way to do it is going to be your outro skills. If you use your outro skill, it is going to take a massive chunk away. So as we have Yang Yang's outro skill ready, we are going to swap 2 more Teffy, and you see it just took a massive chunk away from his shield, getting ready to stun him. We are going to use more Teffy until we get his outro skill ready to go, and then we are going to swap to another character, and we are going to then take another chunk out of it. Then we're going to counterattack, taking another chunk out of it. You can see how you can use these all together to take chunks out of your enemy's shield, getting ready to stun them. Once they are stunned, you can just kind of go to town. It does work great if you can stun them upon using an outro skill, because then you go to your character that gets the buff, and you're just going to be you're going to have all of your buffs ready to go at the time of breaking the shield, stunning them, which is going to be very, very good. So we did use Yang Yang to stun him. We broke his shield. We're going to start going through Yang Yang's order, using her Echo to get the arrow damage, sorry. Then we're going to go use her burst, then we're going to use this, and we're going to use that, and then we're going to stack some stuff up. As the shield starts to come back up, we are going to wait until the bar appears, then we are going to swap to our character using outro skill to start getting that shield to drop once again. Using this different rotation, you can use the counterattacks, you can use the outro skills to make your enemy's shield go down, to stun them, and then, like I said, along the process, kind of getting ready to set up for the final damage hits. That is going to be it for this video. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, do be sure to leave it down in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one.